Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert
and Ryan.
and today we'll be discussing the newest episode of Loki, the Nexus event.
Episode 4.
4 out of 6, right?
Yep, we're more than halfway through, 2/3.
Yep, well. All right, yeah, so first impressions.
It's still just a great show. I don't know what you want from me. It's just really good television.
Yeah, so this episode, I enjoyed it, but
It did not give you what you explicitly said you wanted last episode.
Yeah, I was definitely like, well, this is stupid. Like, damn it. Like, I kept even just thinking, like, maybe it's going to change. It's going to, like, nope. This is just how it is now. Yeah, fuck my.
As the episode was starting, I was like, the more I think about it, I don't think it's a dream. And then it wasn't. And I was like, good.
Well, then what the fuck was with the building falling?
Maybe Loki just has that power.
That is completely ridiculous. There's no reason he should have been able to stop a building from falling on him.
I don't see why he can't. You think he can beat up like 1,000 guards, but he can't use magic to levitate a building when we've seen him use magic to like levitate things.
What a building?
A
building.
Look, I don't know.
Makes no sense.
I'm sorry that this magic world makes no sense.
Yeah, I need to get an explanation for stopping the building falling. I need to see. I mean, I've seen some of the theories online that he had a time stone. I'm like, okay, if it's not he was in a fucking dream controlling it, then he better have the goddamn time stone.
But if he had a time stone, then he would have used it before the planet crashed instead of having the other thing happen to get them off.
And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, then he should have the Tesseract. Then he should have the. I literally have to go back and watch that.
Any
like,
other Infinity Stone should have been able to get him off the planet.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Well, the Mind Stone, maybe not necessarily, but
he could have used that to possess the minds of people and have actually gotten them to the Ark.
Yeah. There's no explanation for why he stopped that building. That was stupid. I need to go back and watch it again and see if. What exactly that was or what he did, but like that it just made no sense.
Have you tried Googling how he was able to do that? Like,
I haven't.
So maybe
because I thought it was a dream until this last episode. So, or not a dream, but an enchantment, a false reality. So, and I was like, in my theory, that made sense. I was like, this makes sense. He can control reality more than he knows. He doesn't understand fully he's in a dream, but he can control it. So he was like, I know I can stop this, and he hasn't put 2 and 2 together. I thought that made it make perfect sense. And then it was just like, nope, he just did it. Like, this is horseshit. But I will say overall, though, even though my really excellent good theory was not correct.
You had a different theory that was correct.
What was my other theory that was correct?
The timekeepers.
Oh, yeah. I just be throwing out theories. Well, technically part of that theory was that that Kang is behind it all, but I guess maybe we might
we'll see what it is. We'll see if it's Kang, Mephisto, or some other third thing.
Yeah. So we'll see what the ultimate whatever is. But yeah, I was right. Of course, the timekeeper. There's too much like, ooh, you can't see the timekeeper. Like we would have just seen them. They would have just been like, come up and be like, here's the prime directive or blah blah blah.
But there is that sort of like, what if they made it so obvious that it was the correct answer?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it was a possibility, but honestly, was not surprised by that. But we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Now let's jump into that recap.
Yep. All right. Cool. So, the episode begins basically as it ended. No. It begins with Sylvie Variant being yanked out of her timeline.
It begins on Asgard.
Yeah, on Asgard. She gets yanked out of her timeline as a variant.
As a little girl.
Yeah, we see her go through the same process that Loki went through. Clearly traumatizing a little bit. And then basically right when she gets to
the judge.
Yeah, the judge with Ravonna Renslayer, who was the one that captured her.
She was the hunter this time, though. She's not a judge.
Yeah. She basically slips around her and gets her temp pad and zips out. And we, basically get this introduction that she's literally been on the run for since she was a child for years and years and years.
I appreciate that this scene is like mostly Like I can't remember if it's completely wordless, but it feels mostly wordless. But the one little thing I have is like she takes the temp pad and then she just sort of stands there and no one does anything about it. And then I'm just supposed to believe that she just figures this all out.
I would agree. I would agree with that. Yeah, I definitely noticed this kind of like turns around. Renslayer looks a little surprised and is like, "What are you doing?" But like, it's clearly a few seconds of her typing on the temp pad before she like zips out or anything. Nobody moves. It's kind of just it's kind of silly a little bit.
There's aspects of watching this happen that makes me have a stronger connection to Sylvie because of like seeing her going through this traumatizing experience. So I get why it's better to do this, but like because that last bit almost takes me out. It almost takes me out in the way that I feel like the Loki stuff in the previous episode took you out. Not quite, but it is enough to like make you be like, oh, come on. Like the little girl, this is the only person who's ever done it. Her as a child.
Yeah, it does seem a little like you just kind of like the story said it has to happen, so like they just didn't even bother trying to make it super realistic.
Look, like because if she just told us the story, like if she just told this story to Loki at the beginning of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
instead of having this be the explanation, like having us see it as the audience,
Yeah,
then she could have just said, I was able to steal a temp pad and get out of there. You miss out on her having the experience of the TVA, the visuals of it, but it just makes more sense because you don't have to think about it.
yeah, no, exactly. Or even if we got a narration and we see the events, that's fine because it can be an interpretation, right, of how she remembers the event going, and we can just say, okay, it's cool because it's a retelling, right? It's not actually what happened. With this is they're displaying to us what actually happened.
And she just grabbed a temp pad, stood there for a couple seconds, and then just sort of left, and no one found her.
Yeah, and it wasn't even it wasn't even like a good, switch out like runaway thing. It was just kind of like it was like a literal kid dipping around a person and
in a room that was filled with people who probably also had temp pads to just go right after her.
Yeah, and apparently she didn't have a time turner collar on her or something.
I guess not.
I guess maybe it wasn't a thing at that point in history. I just whatever. We can move on from that point. But yeah, little whatever there.
So there's this planet or this moon, Lamentus One. It's crashing. Loki and Sylvie are on it. They're not happy about it.
Yeah, and they stalk out of the city that's on fire, and we see this whole planet's like breaking up. Really excellent visuals, honestly. I mean, again, the whole Lamentus scenes are very, cool and huge and kind of just really interesting to look at. But
the Loki show has definitely gotten the best budget of any of the three shows.
Yeah. But yeah, we get Loki following Sylvie out to some lake that's like way outside the city. Again, kind of just like all right, yeah, they just walked like, a couple miles out before they talked to each other and he knew where she was going or what he must have been following her the whole time, I guess. Like whatever. They're way outside the city now on this like lake and there's like the beautiful planet about to crash into them and they have a little moment where they start, talking about, oh, you understand me. And, they're like having a little heart to heart here and stuff. And we get a cut to the TVA where they're tracking. They're saying, like we have our Nexus sensors, maximized. Like, and even if someone steps on a leaf, we're going to detect it. And they're trying to find them creating a Nexus event or any kind of like, parting of the timeline at some place in, time to locate where they are. And we have this moment where Loki, takes Sylvie's hand. He's about to tell her something. They're, just having this connection. And we see this Nexus event that's just, shooting straight up towards the Nexus line.
It's like almost completely perpendicular to the sacred timeline.
Yeah. And they're like, wow, that's not someone stepping on a leaf. And they send them a time portal right there for them to step through. And then we just get them in the TVA captured. Right.
And separated.
Yes. And separated. Well, separated, I think they were together initially and then they got separated.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Because Loki even says, he's like, it's insulting how few gods are godding me, which I did think that was kind of funny. We have them separated, taken to different places. And Mobius basically coming to Loki and being, just kind of like interrogating him, being like, all right, well, you're a backstabber. Like, I should have known this. And
Well, he doesn't interrogate him at first. At first, he just
oh,
drops him in the time loop.
yeah, he does drop him in the time loop. Yeah.
And so something that we've actually missed, because it sort of at the beginning of the episode, it kind of cuts back and forth between the TVA and the Lokis before they get captured, because we get scenes of Mobius talking to Ravonna, asking about Hunter B20 and how she's doing. And that's when we get the reveal that she's dead. And according to Ravonna, she basically had her mind scrambled by Sylvie and couldn't carry on any further. And then we also get a little bit of interaction between Mobius and Hunter B15. And you get, I feel like you got a bit of a hint to Hunter B15 being shook by Sylvie's enchantment in episode 2, but here you can sort of, something seems up with her, like from the moment we first see her, I feel. And this continues to play out further. So Mobius puts Loki into the time loop, and before he gets into the time loop, he says the TVA is lying to you. And
then he's in the time. Loki's in the time loop where he's encountering a memory of his after he cut off Sif's hair, apparently, and she comes in and tells him he's worthless and punches him in the face and kicks him in the balls and then leaves him to go. That just we can assume that happens a dozen, hundred, whatever thousand times before Mobius returns to interrogate him.
Yes, and through this interrogation, we get him basically breaking down Loki. At first, Loki's like, oh, I don't really care about that other variant, Sylvie, letting Mobius know that her name is Sylvie, and that it was his master plan all along, and she came and visited him, and he used her. But then Mobius says that Sylvie was pruned, and Loki kind of changes his perspective on the conversation. And this is when Mobius is able to pick up from Loki's expressions and talking about her that he likes her, and he probably likes her. And Mobius is thinking, well, this is probably universe breaking stuff, like your own self falling in love with yourself. Like that's universe breaking. And we're kind of led to believe that that's correct. It's them having some sort of romantic connection that could be like a sacred timeline destroying.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he says it, but understanding that like Loki's, apparently they are a chaotic force across every multiversal timeline that they ever exist in. Anytime a variant of them exists, they are an agent of chaos. They cause chaos and change wherever they go. And so basically they are a force of chaos. And the TVA and the sacred timeline basically represent order and like the structured and rigid continuous flow of the timeline. And Loki represents chaos. And so the idea of two agents of chaos falling in love and potentially creating a literal like product of chaos.
See, I think even more than them being agents of chaos, it's the fact that it's themselves. They are the same.
Yeah, exactly. But the union of two agents of chaos, like two twin agents of chaos, creating, I mean, again, like they could literally come together and create a pure manifestation of chaos, which is like essentially the antithesis of what the sacred timeline needs. That might even be one of the reasons that it's so important to like catch Lokis and get rid of them so that something like this doesn't happen. I mean, to say it could only probably happen in this singular instance where there's a female Loki and a male Loki.
Look, we already know Loki goes both ways. I'm sure he can fall in love with himself anytime.
Yeah. But yeah, so, but yeah, basically he gets, he exposes that Loki does like Sylvie, like.
It's funny because we also actually get a tip off of this in a way through Loki in the time loop with Sif, because through his attempts to not get kneed in the nuts and slapped in the face. At one point, he like sort of just kind of grovels to Sif and admits that he did it because he's insecure and he's a narcissist. And it's the narcissist comment about him that is actually quite apt, because to be in love with oneself and then to be in love with someone who is you, it's accurate to call him a narcissist.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Mobius lays it all out for us. Anybody that couldn't pick up on the nuance, he straight up says, he's like, what a supreme narcissist to literally fall in love with yourself. Which is, yeah, just accurate.
Exactly. But
meanwhile,
well, I was actually going to finish out the Mobius Loki thing. Through his proper interrogation, we do get Loki basically telling him the full aspects of the TVA is lying to them, in that they're all variants and that Mobius is a variant. And we get Mobius, you can tell he like sort of takes that in, but then he says, nice try, and puts him back into the time loop. And right before he goes back into the time loop, Loki tells him, you're the biggest liar here because you're lying to yourself.
Ooh, lying to yourself, the biggest lie of all.
Meanwhile, while this was happening, we actually got a scene before the full interrogation of Mobius interacting with Hunter B-15. And first, Hunter B-15 asks if he knows anything about B-20. And Mobius lies like Ravonna asked him to, and says that they're still working on her. So Hunter B-15 doesn't know that B-20 was killed at this point. And then she asks if Loki said anything. And Mobius tells her that, oh yeah, Loki just said that the TVA is lying to us. And then he asks B-15 why she asked, and she says, just doing my job. And then we get to see her basically looking at like a TVA poster about like making sure you exterminate all the variants. And she takes her baton and goes to see Sylvie in lockup, and takes Sylvie through a temporal portal. And when they walk through, it's Rock's cart. And Hunter B-15 basically reveals that when Sylvie had her enchanted, she saw something, and it's been she can't stop thinking about it pretty much. And Sylvie reveals that it's her memory of her real life before the TVA. And Hunter B-15 asks Sylvie to show her again. And we get a scene of Sylvie enchanting B-15 to basically see her memories. And it's interesting that they chose not to show us the memories, to just show us the reaction on Hunter B-15's face of what it feels like to see those memories. And it finally sort of pays off why they got this actress who, like, from the beginning, I was like, oh, I recognize her. She was good in something else. She's going to matter here. And she sort of does a lot of good face acting here. And when she leaves the enchantment of her real memories, she says, I looked happy, in this like very like touching voice. And Sylvie's just kind of like knowingly yes. And B-15 is like, what now? And we cut away from them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think at this point we get Mobius with Ravonna.
Yeah. So prior to Mobius, like, really having it, fully revealed to him, he's basically like, when Loki tells him, but he doesn't believe him, he still has this little idea in his head. He goes away, leaves Loki, stuck in another time loop. It basically says, like, we're going to go shut this case. Like, this case is closed. I'm done. And goes with Ravonna, has all the paperwork signed. And she's like, congratulations. Hey, big case closed. You caught both the Lokis. We'll deal with them after this. The timekeepers want you to be there when we deal with the Lokis. He wants you to see it specifically.
See the prunings.
Just congratulations. And then she asks him a question. She says, if you could go anywhere in time, where would you want to go? And he's kind of, he kind of dodges. He's like, well, I can't go anywhere in time. And, there's this little bit of back and forth between them, which I suspect that she had an idea that spending this much time, this is my theory. She had an idea that spending this much time with the Lokis might have kind of tampered with him a little bit. And it was like a trick question to see like if he had some kind of inclination to his past memories.
But he seemed to pick up on the trick. And even though we as an audience know, like, he wants to go ride jet skis. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
If he could be anywhere, he wants to go ride a jet ski.
Yeah.
But he tells her, I just want to be here with you doing the job.
Yep, exactly. He, keeps it smooth and stuff. And, and she gives her kind of a little speech about how, oh, we're friends and this is uncommon and we're working for the right thing. This is important here. All this kind of like this, it feels, honestly, I'll say I think this acting was like pretty good because what I got from it was this trying to be
genuine from her to me.
It felt genuine, but I got this feeling of like a person trying to be genuine, coming from a place where it's somewhat truthful, but that she's kind of like I could feel like
she's hiding, she's manipulating.
Yeah,
and you can also pick up through Mobius that he's not being. Honestly, Mobius feels even somehow less genuine in what he's saying, even though he typically feels like more of a straight shooter, but he has other stuff on his mind. And he's asking a lot of questions.
Yep.
He asks about B20 again. He asks why he can't interrogate Sylvie. He asks, and he brings up Sylvie's name, which is also like a bit of a tip off that he's thinking of the variant as Sylvie instead
exactly. Not as a variant anymore.
And not as Loki.
Yeah. But and I think that's what Mobius should be doing. He's basically like a detective. He's an agent, and so he's acting like a good agent, where he's not quite letting on what he's thinking here. He has a theory in mind, but he's trying to get some answers to it.
And we as an audience can kind of pick up on him like not being fully sold, but we're not really sure about it until he swipes Ravonna's tempad.
Yeah, he kind of creates a distraction, says, hey, where are you going to put this trophy? And while she's not looking, exchanges his tempad for hers. And basically following this kind of was like, all right, hey, that's enough. I'm going to head out. Even she's surprised at that.
You only after one drink? And he said, I think I had two.
Yep. And he heads out of there, and we get him
in the library.
Yeah, and I think the Hunter B-15 scene actually takes place just after this.
Yeah, a lot of these scenes are like coming in between.
Yeah, they're coming back and forth, but basically we have him proceed to an empty library stack and pulls up the tempad, goes through it, finds a Hunter B20 file, and watches a video left over of it, and it's basically her saying like, I remember these were my memories. It was real. Like the thing she was all messed up at was not that her brain was scrambled, but it's that her brain was unfogged, that she remembered the memories she had. And we have Ravonna basically saying this is over. Like, cut that camera off.
And he sees Ravonna taking her away on screen, but Ravonna. Not only is he being revealed to what she actually said, but Ravonna explicitly said that she was speaking nonsense and she died of the enchantment. So honestly, I feel like Ravonna could have told him like that she was saying some crazy stuff, that the Sylvie had corrupted her and that we had to take care of her. Like, I feel like he may have been more open to that than the outright lie, because he could tell it was a lie.
Yeah, but that's only in the case that Ravonna thinks that he suspects her of lying. Otherwise, I think she was trying to suss out whether he thought so or not, and he did a decent enough job to basically make her be like, oh no, he's good. He's still on the level. It's all good. And he gave her, there's no reason that she has to come up with and even reveal any more to him to make him want to probe and
But he's a good detective.
But he is a good detective, yeah. And, maybe she could have thought a little ahead, but she just didn't think so. How was he going to get a hold of any evidence? The only evidence would have been on her tempad, and how would she have even suspected he would make that move? So
that's fair. But we get him returning to Loki.
Yeah, comes back to Loki in the time loop, who's probably been kicked in the nuts a few more dozen hundred times. And he's like, do you really care about her? Are you really serious about this? Like, I need to be able to trust you. He's basically at this point somewhat
Do you
convinced.
think you deserve to be alone?
Yeah.
Is what he asks.
Yeah. And Loki's like, no, I don't. And
I want it. Let's do this. And Mobius is like, do you trust her? And he's like, yes. She didn't plant the memories in Hunter B20.
Yeah.
They were real memories. Yes, I believe her. I think that this is a real.
Yep. And then he's like, all right, well, let's go then. And they leave the time loop, and bam, there's Ravonna, Renslayer, there with 5 hunters, all poised with their their prune blade. What are they called?
The pruning batons. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, pruning batons ready. And at first she's kind of like, he's like, oh yeah, sorry, didn't even realize that I had mine. I was just getting, like, and she, but she knows the jig is up, and he knows too. And he kind of just says, he's like, you asked me where I would want to go. You know where I want to go? I want to be riding a jet ski. I wouldn't want to be here. Like
he before jet ski, he says, I want to live my life before I was taken by the TVA.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's just so proud. He's just like, my jet ski. And then she says those words.
Mm-hmm. Prune him.
And Mobius gets pruned.
Man, and dude, I really was like, wow, holy shit! I didn't think that it was gonna actually happen. Like, I thought they'd like take him in something like.
Yeah, I was kind of floored by this. I was like, what is happening?
And I was like, no, we like Mobius.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Mobius is pruned, and then they take take Loki
to the elevator
to take him to the Timekeepers,
and then Ravonna goes to grab Sylvie, and when she sees Sylvie has wet hair, she's like, who came in here, who interacted with her? And they say, well, B-15 said that she needed to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
And she puts out basically an alert to grab B-15. She's also been corrupted.
Yeah, but
the Sylvie is being taken to the elevators now, and so both of them are being taken to see the Timekeepers like they wanted.
Yep. And they're taken up there, and there's a little moment where Sylvie's asking Ravonna, like, why did you do it? What was the Nexus event that I caused? Like, why did you take me? She's like, I don't even know. I don't remember. Which really is kind of a slap in the face, where it's just like, it's kind of like that. You weren't even important enough to remember. It doesn't matter. Don't care. Whatever. Yeah. Like, you're just a little nothing at that time.
And this, you can see on Sylvie's face, there's like this like deep like disappointment and like kind of like solemnness to know that like her entire life was uprooted for something so trivial that she couldn't even remember why.
Yep. But they arrive in the Timekeeper's chamber, and they go to confront them, and they are like, well, you blah blah. I can't remember exactly what they said. It was just such a bunch of like whatever bullshit. Like,
yeah, and like two of the Timekeepers like spoke with these weird like voices, like, yeah, are you a cosmic disappointment?
Yeah, yeah, they sounded like they were Mon Calamari from Star Wars or something, whatever. But yeah, they say something, and they're like, all right, well, fast judgment and blah blah blah. And there's like a moment where it's like, all right, cool, like they're gonna be pruned, or they're gonna be taken care of. And Hunter B-15 shows up
and takes their collars off.
And cancels their collars off, and is like,
and then
boom,
tosses a machete.
It tosses Sylvie's sword.
Oh,
that's
okay,
what it was.
That tracks.
Yeah, which means that she went to Ravonna. That means she went to Ravonna's office to get it.
Yeah,
which maybe means that she got the right time turner thingy. But yeah, and then they engage in hot combat, and kill some guards and knock them down and take down Ravonna for a moment, and they slice one of the Timekeepers' heads off, and bam, it's a fucking android. It's not even real. None of them are real. They're all fake.
We could see that coming. It was a very much a Wizard of Oz moment of this is not. Do not look behind the curtain. And yeah. They were robots.
Yeah.
And Sylvie and Loki just seem so disappointed by this.
Yeah. They're like, what the fuck? Like, this is really like, they were, like, who was really behind all this then? But they take a moment, and they're about to, Loki's like, Sylvie, I have to tell you something. Wham. And Loki is fucking pruned by Ravonna.
If you thought Mobius being pruned was a mind F, then goddamn.
Mind fuck. The word you were looking for was fuck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a mind fuck.
Yeah, get fucked.
And then Loki is pruned, and Sylvie's enraged and takes out Ravonna and says, you're gonna tell me everything.
Bitch. End
of episode. Is it?
Oh, is it? But it's not. Because of course Loki can't really be dead, right? And so after the, in the mid-credit scene, we get Loki opening his eyes and waking up, and he's like, is this hell? Which if you have the subtitles on, it's
Hel.
Yeah, Hel, which is how hell is spelled in the Norse
mythos.
Yeah, and we get Loki looking up and standing over him. I don't know if they say something. Do they say something? I don't know if there are words said.
They say you're not dead.
Yeah, you're not dead
as long as you come with us.
Yeah, come with me if you want to live. And we get to look up, and it's bam, fucking the Loki squad, literally Kid Loki. I don't know who Black Loki and Gator Loki and Old Loki, and literally the classic Loki like costume from the comics, and then bam, that's end of episode. All right, well, end of episode. I guess we move into some talking points. Do you have anything you want to bring up specifically?
I mean, not a lot of interesting stuff happened, so I can't think of anything.
Right.
All right. Well, let's address the well, we sort of already talked about that this episode did not follow through with the dream thing. So that's just kind of dumb. But here's the thing. I know that you are disappointed by the theory from the previous episode not coming true, but honestly, this episode to me justified the last episode very much, because the last episode, like, the worst things that could be said about it is that it was a filler episode and not a lot happened. But if we think of that episode as being like an hour to justify Sylvie and Loki being able to like have that connection that caused the Nexus event, then I think that I think that this episode makes that episode better.
Yeah, I basically would agree. I actually did like this episode, and in some ways it did make it really just, it kind of, pissed me off that my theory wasn't correct, because I felt like it was so like, I feel like I'm putting all the dots together and they're hiding them just right. But to be honest, the fact that it isn't just is what it is. And I will agree. Like the last episode was us watching them get, like become connected, even though they rail against each other, because sometimes, like when a person's almost too similar, like you butt heads, but eventually you find out like you're so similar that you almost understand each other really well. And so I understand where it all comes from, even though in some ways it does feel a little like where it's like, they like each other. I'm like, God, we knew that the protagonist and his female counterpart were gonna go on a slight journey, and by the end they were gonna like each other. 12 hours later, we're in love.
Yeah, it does feel from that perspective, it does feel like a bit obvious, and even more so that it is Loki falling in love with basically himself.
And that's actually the reason it gets by. If they were two strangers, I would be like, 12 hours later, you guys are in love? This is stupid. But the fact that it is actually himself makes me be more like, this makes sense. Lokis are alone because nobody can ever understand them except for literally another Loki. Like they even basically express that like nobody understands me and I never really fallen in love because nobody gets it. I'm alone. But it's like, wait a minute. Oh, we're not alone because we literally have each other now. Like we are Lokis and we understand each other.
Yeah, like at the end of the world for them, they basically, Sylvie's just like, is the common thing between all Lokis that we lose? And our Loki tells her, no, that's not it. It's something more than that. And
I think she says that we lose and that we die. And he's like, well, we might lose, but we don't die.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what Loki's a survivor. Even at the timekeepers, he says, I've died more times than I can count.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought is hilarious.
Even before this series, that was already the joke with him, like in the MCU. He kept dying and he kept coming back. And that's kind of his defining trait.
Yeah, exactly. You literally can't kill this guy. So, but yeah, my dream thing didn't work out, but I actually thought this episode did. You're right. I think they made up for it in this episode. It made sense. I could have done, again, there's things about that last episode that I can't get over, right? The building thing. Like, someone needs to fucking explain to me why that building thing happened, or I'm just like that thing right there, because I thought that was hard proof that it had to be a dream. And if there's no other explanation for it, then I don't even know what to say. I'm just pissed. Like, that is one point of the episode that just like pisses me off. This episode, though, was just cool. We got a lot of really like great moments that were kind of like those moments from WandaVision or even from Falcon Winter Soldier, where it's like, bam, revealed into Captain America, or, bam, reveal all the this and that. Like,
except in this case, it's bam, reveal that. Wait. See, this episode isn't even so much bam reveals. It's more like shocking stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily the reveals. But it's more like we get some just hard, shocking, like interesting moments. Like we have Mobius gets pruned, Loki gets pruned. The Timekeepers are revealed to be androids.
B-15 turning to the side of Loki and Sylvie.
Exactly. All these things, Ravonna Renslayer is like kind of the bad guy. We get something we already theorized, that the TVA were actually kind of the bad guys here.
But if there was one gag in this episode, it was that after credit scene to see that the pruning that they did such a good job of teaching us the word prune from the first episode and just making us assume that they're eviscerated, that they're removed from the timeline. And we just sort of accept that.
Yeah.
But never does it say that that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And it's not what happens. They're just put into this other little world, which we only got a glimpse of. But I've heard a lot of people online mention that the tower in the background looks like it's an Avengers tower.
Yeah, I didn't really hear about the Avengers tower in the background thing. But yeah, I don't see. And here's the thing that I suspect, right? Because I'm like sitting here thinking, I'm like, how can there be so many points in time, right? I know the TVA is like vast and universal and or whatever. How can there be so many points in time that end up, like maybe going the wrong way? Like I think the universe tends towards chaos, right? Like I think that's a natural, like, Loki is an agent of chaos and will continually push that to occur. But the universe itself is random, like it doesn't, I mean, if you subscribe to certain theories, the universe is essentially random. There's always going to be something that goes one way. And the fact that like this bug could have walked this way or the other way, and one way it gets squashed and one way it goes and it bites another person, and that, like
an infinite amount of universes.
Yeah. So like the idea of that being a thing leads me to believe in like, there's no way you can just have a sacred timeline, right? You can't just have a single time. Like there's no way to force one timeline to be the only one that exists. Right. I think that there probably are more timelines that exist. It's just as long as those other timelines don't endanger this one where, again, I'm going to echo the same theory. Kang the Conqueror is the basically wins and is the conqueror at the end and all time here. As long as it doesn't threaten that existence, that's the hitting the red line is this event will lead to the sacred Kang the Conqueror not being the one that is the ruler of all the timelines. And that's the real danger. Kang the Conqueror doesn't want anybody to, stop him from being the ruler in the future. And so he makes sure that in the past it never happens.
If it is Kang. But so here's a thought about what we see the pruning devices do. And what's notable is the color of the pruning device. Mm-hmm. It's like this orangey yellow thing.
It's like a rainbow. It kind of is. I think it gives off like a rainbow color.
See, I get more of an orange. Maybe I'm misremembering it.
The edges of it are orange, but as a person burns away, it leaves like a rainbow-like trail.
But what I'm getting at is it's a similar color to the teleportation portals that they open. So what it basically, and the fact that it's not destroying the people sort of gives off the possibility that maybe it was never destroying. It was just teleporting to. Let's assume that the TVA takes place in like the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Wherever the TVA exists. And we've seen before that the TVA is a big place. Like we saw the window of the whole world. Maybe wherever the TVA is, but in a separate area of it is where not only the variants are being taken, but the timelines are being taken.
Yeah. Or like, I think there might be like a dead timeline. That's like one of the leftover. This is just, kind of to tack onto my, there are other timelines theory. There's like a dead timeline and it's like a defeated time. Like if an Avengers tower is in the background, it's specifically a defeated timeline. Straight up, like this timeline will never win. And so they send all the variants or whatever they want to that dead timeline.
But they prune timelines. That's how they get rid of the skewed timelines. The timelines are being pruned. So if the pruning doesn't destroy the variants, then the pruning can't destroy the timeline. So the timelines must exist still.
Exactly. See, and that's because one thing, okay, so we saw, here's one thing that you sort of notice, and this could just be how they did it, and maybe it's not, but you don't see the grenades destroying the actual, ground, right? The things that are like the reset is not like eliminating the literal earth that exists there. And I even said before, I was like, how can this grenade be so powerful? How could it possibly destroy an entire timeline, right? I don't think it is. I think what it's doing is it's wiping away the existence of the variant in that alternate timeline, and as long as that variant, every variation is just an attack on the sacred time. Like it's literally this thing will make sure that this will make Kang the Conqueror not win in the end. Again, that's based on my theory. It could be somebody else. It could be, but this variant will threaten just the sacred timeline. But this timeline can't be erased. You cannot erase another multiversal timeline. They're just making sure that timeline never intersects and makes sure that this one fails at its mission. And that's why all it does is erase the variation. It doesn't erase the whole timeline, because otherwise those grenades would be like ridiculously powerful. Those grenades really are just resetting and sending things, any variation, to the dead timeline.
Exactly. The pruning device went from being this like ultimate, like all powerful, can destroy anything, to, oh, it appears to just be like a glorified teleportation stick.
Yeah, which I mean, if we can assume, at least to some degree, and I know there's there's magic and all kinds of other stuff going on, that this universe runs off of some basis in like physics and science, at least from our world, that matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So the idea that it just incinerates them, would go. It
felt like an all-powerful thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but they can't be just incinerated. It has to go somewhere. So it like they are in essence being removed, but like it's just from where they are, and they're going to a dead timeline. Like as far as you're concerned, it is basically hell, right? A timeline that's basically dead and you'll never escape from it. Like you might as well be dead. You might as well be in hell.
Exactly. And honestly, I think, and hopefully we get this answer next episode, the big question remains is, what is the TVA? How did it form? Where is the TVA? Because I feel like that's still like sort of the big thing, like that this place, the thing that established this place as being the all-powerful power in the universe is the fact that the Infinity Stones didn't work. So this is a place outside of the power of the Infinity Stones. So what is it, and how does it exist?
I mean, I think it just exists within the quantum realm. So it exists.
I think quantum realm is a good answer, but like these shows have occasionally kept us on our toes enough for me to think that it could possibly not be.
Yeah, potentially. Like it exists outside of the universe, outside time. But I just don't know if there's any basis that, I mean, that's like the only other alternative. And I don't know where the basis is to believe that. Like what, I mean, otherwise here's the thing, is that I look at it like this. We know that we're getting an introduction of the multiverses. We're getting the introduction of like more quantum, like hijinks, essentially.
Quantum mania.
But to say that the TVA is like, okay, the TVA exists outside of time. All right, that means we're basically introducing, or Disney is introducing with Marvel, a new aspect outside of everything, outside of the universe,
outside of the quantum verse, and outside of the multiverse.
Yeah, which I think just adds another wrinkle to the whole thing. It fits more properly to just say it exists within the quantum verse.
Yeah, I agree, but it technically remains to be seen at this point.
Or here's another thought that I have, right? That actually I just came up with this right now, that the TVA exists at the end of the sacred timeline, in which King the Conqueror is the ruler. And listen, because there are no Infinity Stones in that sacred timeline now. The sacred timeline has no Infinity Stones anymore, right? Like canonically, Thanos destroyed all the Infinity Stones. They had to bring other ones from different timelines to even have them work there. So maybe, and I guess actually this doesn't make sense because those Infinity Stones did work on that timeline.
Yeah,
but maybe I think the TVA exists at like maybe the end of this sacred timeline, and like when King the Conqueror has an infinite like giant fucking
maybe in his conquest he was able to basically destroy the power of all magic, because it's not just the Infinity Stones, it's like practical magic is gone in all ways. Yeah,
exactly. Like nobody else has any power essentially. Like they have their technology, but it's all analog, and so that can be like a portion of like. I don't know, but you see what I'm going with here, right? Like they exist at the end of timeline. There's no. Here's the thing: is that this actually might even tie into the idea that because the Sorcerer Supreme before Doctor Strange said the Infinity Stones, protect our universe and flow of time. If Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones in their timeline, even if they're like, oh, we'll make sure yours is protected. We'll go back to your part of the timeline and make sure there. But that means that nothing is protecting their timeline anymore, right? Like, I don't know if anybody ever realized or mentioned, like, if he snapped them away, then your cheapest weapon against the forces of darkness is gone. Like, it cannot be even replaced.
But the forces of darkness don't have that power either. I mean, all of this is like such like big level stuff coming towards the MCU as a whole. We have less than a week until Black Widow comes out.
Yeah.
As of us recording this, we will be watching it within a week, and honestly, I don't expect it to have rippling effects on the timeline in even the way.
Yeah, I don't.
I think it's going to be comparable to the timeline that Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, quite frankly.
I mean, all I expect from Black Widow is that we are going to get, a movie of hers that probably should have come out some time ago, and we're also just going to get our confirmation of, Florence Pugh being new Black Widow for the future.
Because she's the greatest actress out.
I don't know if she's the greatest actress
I love her
out, but I really love her too. So
yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I mean,
it's weird because a lot happened this episode, but I actually feel like I kind of have less to talk about.
Yeah, because I feel like this episode answered a bunch of questions almost. They were just like, okay, cool. But like it resolved some points and then also led us into some more questions. I mean, like obvious question, like who are the timekeepers? But we're going to get that answer next episode.
Exactly. It's telling us that we're going to learn answers next episode, which tells me that maybe next episode is going to be... We can only hope that next episode is going to be what has been traditionally one of the better episodes. It was at least the best episode in WandaVision, the second to last episode.
Yeah, the penultimate episodes have been one of the feature pretty big episodes of each of these MCU series.
And then the very last episode being a bit not a disappointment, but just like throwing all the stuff out that is going to lead into future projects.
Yeah.
Like the U.S. agent being established in the last episode. Yeah. Like it does nothing to the story and it doesn't really close out this character's arc, but that's because his arc is just beginning essentially. Yeah. Or putting Scarlet Witch in like the middle of a cabin out in the woods reading the dark book. I can't remember what it's called.
The Darkhold. Yeah. But yeah, I think next episode we're going to get most of the, the big mysteries are going to be sort of like brought together or solved. We're going to have the, the other variant Lokis being like, this is like what's been happening and you didn't know about this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to have Sylvie literally talking to Renslayer, and Renslayer's going to be like, I'll tell you, this is what we're going to get a bunch of like, here's the explanation for a bunch of things and questions that we had so far. And the final episode will be either like
some level of resolution for the first half of the episode, but then a bunch of teasers to future stuff in the second half.
Yeah, it'll be like, oh, well, I guess I'll see you later, or I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do that. And then we're going to be like, oh my God, look at this thing in the background. Oh, Kang the Conqueror's coming. Oh, we're going to get all these. Yeah, exactly. We're going to get the leading into other episodes, leading into other parts. And I think, hey, I bet we're going to get like a Doctor Strange multiverse madness tie-in or something like that. We're going to get like some, I feel like, actually I have a thought that maybe they're going to go a little bit different, and it's going to be like a big, like, like the TVA is going to be like destroyed for this.
I think the TVA is not lasting this series.
Yeah, I don't think so. Or whatever is going to be left of them will be like a shattered
husk of what it was.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think that's where we're going here. And man, yeah. So far though, the series is really setting up for a lot of cool stuff, and this episode really, made me feel a lot better than the episode before. The episode before, I almost look back at it a little more fondly now because I see where it was going. But until somebody explains that fucking building thing to me, I'm not going to be okay with it. So
I implore you to maybe look online to see if there's an explanation. Let's drive. Let's go talk to freaking Kevin Feige himself. Like, come on, you did so good, but that building takes me out.
Yeah, no, I'm like, that was stupid. I'm not okay with that. So, but maybe we'll get an explanation. Maybe it's all fake. Maybe all this shit is fake as fuck.
Loki, not real.
Yeah. So, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it for me.
Honestly, yeah, for me, this is going to be a little shorter than last week, but that's fine. That's fair.
Yeah.
Next week, maybe it'll be so big. Next week, we'll have Black Widow to talk about. Well, stuff's happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Maybe next week, one of my theories will be true, since this week it had to shatter my foolproof, amazing theory.
Yeah. Hey, Kang, if he doesn't show up next episode, or gets teased at the end of the last episode, then that's a big middle finger.
Yeah, it's basically a big fuck you, Robert. You know, you're actually an idiot. So
You see, it really what they did was it was King. They put all the stuff in there. Then they started listening to the podcasts, and they were like, "Oh, shit.
reshoot everything. Fuck this kid. Yeah, we got to make sure he's not right."
Nah, now instead of King the Conqueror, the great power in the universe is
the Wizard of Oz.
Yes, we're off to see the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, frankly, actually, that's probably what happened. Now that I think about it, they probably literally heard the podcast and were like, "Wow, this kid actually figured it out. That's totally going to ruin everything. We need to go fix it." And so they changed it just so I'd be wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, I mean, thanks, Disney, for listening.
Yeah, thanks. Apparently, Disney listened to our podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up.
Yep. I think that's all. Until next time, folks, this has been Robert.
And Ryan.
Have a good one.
Yep.